the panel, the discussion, an objective and impartial view of the issues of interest to you. Nation Beat is on now.
Hello and welcome to another TV 30. It's a broadcast of the Government Information Service and the National Television Network. My name is Chris Satney. In today's program, we speak on the very important topic of International Day of the Francophonie, and by extension, the entire organization of modern languages, French and Francophonie. And to speak with us about this and other aspects of the observance of International Francophonie Day is Ms. Marcia Symphorian, who is the national correspondent for the Francophonie, and Ms. Jessima Cooper, who is a curriculum officer for modern foreign languages with the Curriculum and Materials Development Unit, CAMTO. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Awesome. Francophonie, we know, is celebrated worldwide. But let's talk about the significance of Francophonie.
So, first of all, Francophonie is many things. It is a community, first and foremost, a community of nations that share a common linguistic and cultural heritage based on the French language. 93 member states to be exact, 56 of these being full members, including St. Lucia. Francophonie is also an organization, the International Organization for the Francophonie, which essentially coordinates all activities and programs relating to the Francophonie.
Awesome. We know that the emphasis is on the French language. So, Ms. Scoop, I would like to ask you, what does that mean for the French language with Francophonie and by extension, modern languages on the whole?
Of course, French is one of the foreign languages being taught at primary and secondary schools as well as tertiary level education in St. Lucia. And at these institutions, they offer French as language, a medium of communication, and students do French there as well. So for us it is very significant because St. Lucia being a member of Francophonie, it means therefore that we need to be able to communicate with other member countries and of course countries where French is spoken. So this is the ultimate goal of teaching French as a foreign language in St. Lucia.
We do know that the whole aspect of culture is taken into consideration by the Francophonie. Speak to us about that aspect of it as far as the significance to St. Lucia and, of course, the culture.
Now, often when people speak about the Francophonie, they just assume that it's French language and culture. Yes, the French language, but the Francophonie also focuses on multilingualism. So it embraces indigenous languages, like the Creole, for example. In terms of culture, it also recognizes cultural diversity within the space. So while we may share a common cultural heritage because of our relationship, historic relationship with France, it actually promotes the diversity of cultural expressions and the diversity of cultural heritage within the member states. So we all have something that we bring to the table. It's about sharing what is unique to each of the member states. And I think it's something that we really want to emphasize. When we observe Francophonie, we celebrate Moroccan heritage, for example. We celebrate Canadian heritage.
So things that are indigenous to the particular
member states. Yes. So it's not just a celebration of French heritage, as in France, the country, but really recognizing that France does influence a lot of what we do in the other spaces, but we have what is indigenous to us, and Francophonie promotes and recognizes that as well.
But it does have some impact as far as the impact of the French on those particular countries that are part of the organization.
It does indeed, because when we speak of the French being part of our heritage, we share, historically, we have lots of commonalities, as well as geographically, and often we do exchanges with our neighboring countries like Martinique and Guadeloupe, and on a school level, and we don't only take along students who do French, but also students who do history and geography, as well as business, because we have our neighbor next door, Martinique and Guadeloupe. Students can see live enactment of a historically a plantation, for
so
example.
So it lends itself to a lot of exchanges?
Exchanges across various subjects.
How do you see the exchanges impacting the teaching of the French language within the schools?
Of course, first of all, for immersion purposes, the students are able to see the language being in its authentic realm, so to speak. So students speak with speakers, our solution students speak with speakers of French and see that it is a language that they share, but they share common ideas, etc. So the more authentic you can make your classroom, the better it is for the students, and they're able to, of course, develop that ability to communicate in the language as natural as possible.
Okay.
So,
awesome. Talk to us about the various members of the Francophonie that make up Francophonie.
So yes,
and how is that determined?
Yes, as she was saying, Martinique and Guadeloupe, of course, as part of France, the members of the Francophonie. Within the Caribbean region, it's St. Lucia, Dominica, Haiti. These are the 3 full members of the Francophonie, and you would note that these 3 countries have the Creole language in common as well. The other member states, many of them are from the African region, and then you have within the Americas, you have Canada, Quebec. You also have, well, of course, the main country being France. We have many observer countries that are not necessarily countries that have this French heritage, but countries that have shed a desire to be a part of the community because they recognize, that's right, because they recognize the importance of multilingualism and the doors that it can open, because it's not just about studying French for the sake of studying French. It's about creating opportunities for exchanges and for benefiting the member states. So many of them have come on board as observer members or as associate members. As we speak, St. Kitts is in the process of applying. Well, they have applied for membership, and it is going to be discussed and approved at the next Francophonie Summit. So it's really a bouillon of cultures. It is, yes, it is really a multiplicity of cultures and member states with a lot of differences, but of course this common desire to promote the Francophonie, the values of the Francophonie, which are also human rights, values of human rights and peace and justice and so on.
You did make mention of the Creole language. We know that quite a bit of work has been done on the ground, especially with CAMDO. First of all, what do you think of the growth of Creole in St. Lucia to the point where there is now a policy on Creole?
So my position, I think, not my personal position, as well as my official position, is that Creole should be an official language of St. Lucia. It is our mother tongue, and it is one that I think it's important that we promote it so that we can ensure persons have access to services that perhaps they otherwise would not have access to. We have to start that conversation about ensuring that quite outside of the language policy which is being implemented by the ministry, and Ms. Cooper can speak to that, the language policy of ensuring that Creole is taught in schools, we need to go further and make it an official language of the state so that it can be seen as alongside English as our 2 official languages.
Awesome. Well, we'll come back to you in just a moment and speak more on that Creole policy. But first, we need to take a break. You're watching TV30. We're back after this.
Listen, I am fed up. You're just asking for more information, more information, more information. What is that all about? You know me, Gassa. I'm doing business all the time.
I'm sorry for the inconvenience, sir, but let me explain to you why we request additional information.
More information, man, it's
So every year, $2 trillion is laundered through legitimate institutions like this bank.
What that have to do with me?
This laundered money is used to support criminal activity and terrorist activity, and also to finance weapons for mass destruction.
But what that have to do with me putting my money into my account?
Well, because of money laundering, our bank, your bank, is obligated to comply with the International Anti-Money Laundering Regulation.
What's that?
By performing customer due diligence. Essentially, just knowing our customers a little better.
You know me.
Your banking patterns and transactions. It's a relationship, and if we fail to comply, the penalties will be severe. Not just for this bank, but for St. Lucia.
If we?
Yes.
I never realized that.
But what's good is that we have an oversight body called NAMLOC.
What's NAMLOC?
The National Anti-Money Laundering Committee. It monitors St. Lucia's compliance with international regulations. The aim is to nip money laundering at its source. You know the old saying, si la pani city wears.
La pani volée.
For further information, contact the Attorney General's Chambers at 468-3200 or visit the National Anti-Money Laundering SLU Facebook page.
Welcome back to TV30 as we continue our discussion on the International Day of the Francophonie and of course Francophonie on a whole. We were talking about, before the break, the conversation about how the Creole language is taking shape as far as policy is concerned. Speak to us on that policy as brief as you can.
Okay, well, we have now made it policy, well, not policy, but the aim is to make it a policy to teach the Creole language in schools on the island. And there is, in fact, an ongoing pilot project where Creole is now being taught at 14 primary schools around the island. And it is going excellently. It is, it has encouraged not only teachers, but the students who are not necessarily exposed too much with the Creole language. It's not maybe spoken at home, but now the fact that it is being done in schools, they're now getting to learn. So the schools are schools from the north all the way to the south around the island. So students are able to be taught Creole in a formal setting because for it to be policy and official, it has to be able to function at all levels of society. So the fact that it is being taught at schools, the students can learn to speak it, write it, and of course use it in any situations to be able to not just function, but to be able to have a level that which they can communicate, whether it be in a business meeting, because we do have other countries where in the world where French Creole in particular, our Creole is spoken, and it's similar to, it may not be the same exactly, but it's similar to our St. Lucian Creole.
So realization has been in the making for some time, but not to be devil's advocate, but how do you see the teaching of Creole vis-a-vis juxtaposed, so to speak, next to French? We know that Creole is kind of, it has French in it, it's kind of broken French, it's mixed up with French and other languages and English as well. But how do you see that affecting the teaching of French on a whole?
Well, you know, there are two ways of looking at it. Some persons say that when you learn French, you have to forget all of your Creole, so as not to get confused. They're two very separate languages, and more than likely the teachers will be specializing in their particular language, not necessarily, you know, a French teacher automatically teaching Creole, because it's a different language. It has its own orthography, own system. So your teachers would have to be trained to learn the language in a very official sense, not just that we speak it orally, because for the longest while it has been an oral language. It has to now become official to the extent that we're able to speak it within official formal settings, and that requires teachers to be trained. And I imagine as part of the pilot program, that a lot of that would have taken place. So it supports it to a certain extent. It supports certainly the idea of multilingualism, which is what we're promoting. We have French, we have Spanish, Mandarin, and certainly the Creole language has its place as well within that multilingual context.
Awesome. Let's talk about the observance of Francophonie Day. We've spoken about the significance, but what's the theme for this Francophonie Day and what does it symbolize this year?
Yes, so this year the theme is Je m'éduque, donc j'agis, which essentially means that I educate myself and therefore I'm able to act. So it's action through education in a sense. It really seeks to promote the importance of education for helping our citizens cope with the challenges of our modern era, and especially our young people. But more than that, for us, it is stressing the importance of French language acquisition for opening opportunities for our young people to study abroad, not necessarily study French, but study in French. I think that's one of the things that we really want to emphasize the importance of giving our students opportunities to go overseas and learn whatever it is that they want to study. Having the French language is a tool. We can probably speak to that in a little bit with Ms. Cooper, but there are many opportunities for our young people to study the language, acquire a certain level, and go overseas and study. It could be medicine, it could be business, any area that they want to study. There are opportunities out there. So for us, language as a vehicle towards higher education as well. So that is the essence of the theme. And of course, this year we have had quite a packed program of activities with our partners, our usual partners, that I really have to stress and thank the French Embassy, who always supports us every year, the Alliance Française, the Moroccan Embassy, who has come on board this year in a very strong way. This year we had a packed week of activities, and then next week we continue with the activities up until the 31st. So we have within the schools a number of schools competitions, because we really believe that is where we need to put the focus to encourage our students to be more, to practice the language. So we have a number of competitions for schools, poster competition, poetry competition, spelling bee, which is one that the schools always look forward to. But in addition to that, we had with Sir Arthur Community College dictation competition last week. And this week they will be hosting a new event, the inaugural Francophonie, which is a festival of sorts. So really a festival of the Francophonie, highlighting the language and the culture, and that is going to be happening on the school's grounds on the 26th Wednesday. We have the French Teachers Association also coming on board this year with an event on the 27th. At the Alliance Française, where they'll be meeting with the teachers to celebrate Francophonie as well in their own way. And it culminates with a prize-giving ceremony on the 31st of March at the Cultural Center, where all of the schools will come to receive their prizes and their awards for the various activities that they've taken care of. But one of the main events we had this year was on Francophonie Day, which was the 20th. We had a launch of a project called Espace du Livre Francophone, which is a launch of a project which we'll be undertaking with the Central Library to create a Francophonie literature space, a Francophonie book space, where we can have material available to our students in French. I think many of our students, the interaction with French is limited to perhaps their French textbooks, and they don't have opportunities sometimes to acquire books, novels that they can relate to, and movies and so on that they can have access to readily. So we want to create this space which will be not just books, but we'll also have digital material, audiovisual material, that the students can come into the library and spend some time, sort of an immersion, an on-island immersion with the language. So that was launched on Wednesday the 20th at the Harbour Club Hotel with the support of Central Library and the Ministry of Education.
Awesome. We're due for another break, but we'll be back in just a moment.
What's in the food you're eating? Do you really even know? All the chemicals and hormones used to accelerate their growth. All the artificial flavoring, sweeteners and colors too. We consume and we don't spare a thought for the damage that they'll do. No, think about the children. Think about the children. How will we save them? Chemicals and GMOs are not the solution. Use organic and join.
Excessive agrochemical use, additives, and genetically modified foods are harmful to health and the environment. Join the good food revolution. Grow, buy, and consume organic. A message from Rise St. Lucia and the Ministry of Sustainable Development with funding from the GEF Small Grants Program, UNDP.
The good food revolution.
And welcome back to TV30 as we continue our discussion with our guests, Ms. Symphorian and of course Ms. Cooper. We did speak earlier of the Creole language becoming mainstream, but you did want to make a clarification as far as how it's perceived.
Yes, indeed, because the perception is that it is not Creole, our solution Creole is not a language, and it is...
Yeah, sometimes we call it broken French.
Broken French.
Colloquially.
Right.
Yeah.
But so much studies have been done, and we have to sort of move away from that perception.
Right.
Because with all the studies that have been done, when we examine solution Creole, it has its own syntax, it has its own semantics, it has its own features of a language, its own grammar, for example. So you do have to study that. And to be able to teach it, you have to be trained, just like you're trained in the teaching of French as a foreign language. All right? And you have to be trained in the teaching of Creole as a second language, if one may say so, because there exists languages can be a foreign language. For example, for us, French is a foreign language. It is not officially our language, but it is. It exists like Spanish and Mandarin. Creole now exists in a context whereby it is part and parcel of our society. It is our heritage. So it is it has to be learned, however. And the phenomenon of multilingualism is something that people often think that learning of one language will affect the other, and this is not so. Okay, learning of French does not affect your learning of English as long as it is being taught in a way that you separate the two. So hence the reason why if we are teachers of French, you ought to use that target language in the classroom as much as possible. It can be compared with your own, which is our official, which is English. However, the target language must be used, so the teachers need to be really competent in the oral aspect of it too, so that it's not confusing to the learners. So in essence, going back to our Creole language, it is a language and it can exist alongside the other languages, well, mainly English in St. Lucia, and it can be taught alongside just like any other foreign language that is being offered.
Ms. Symphorian, you did give us a nice pronunciation of the theme, and I think it's Je m'éduque donc j'agis.
Je m'éduque donc
j'agis. Did I do well?
Very well.
And in English, that means, once again?
So essentially it is I educate myself, therefore I act. Yes, so it's action through education.
Action through education.
Yes.
So nice to clarify that. There are other activities that are happening aside from the Francophonie Day. You want to speak on specifically the caravan?
Yes. So last year in December we launched a caravan. Actually, it's for the Caribbean. The caravan, Francophonie caravan for the Caribbean region, and the idea was to really give a bit of a boost to Francophonie within the Caribbean region, because we had seen a bit of a lull over the years. And because I also wear two hats, sometimes the UNESCO hat tends to be a little more visible than the Francophonie. So we really wanted to give a little bit of a push. And so we launched Francophonie Caravan in December. And what has happened since then is that we've attempted to take Francophonie outside of the classroom setting. And what I mean by that is, while we do focus on schools and educating students in the French language, we want persons to also know that Francophonie is broader than that.
Yeah.
That there are many, many opportunities that can be derived from our membership to the organization. This month, which incidentally is also for women, the month for Women's Day, we launched the Francophonie avec Elle program, which is a fund for women and girls, fully financed by the Francophonie organization. And we've had several information sessions with gender relations, UN Women. We've had discussions with officials from Export St. Lucia, a variety of agencies, OECS, who are now aware of the existence of this program because of the caravan. We have coming up a trade mission in Benin, and we're trying to see how St. Lucia can participate in that. Our entrepreneurs can be a part of that. It's an annual event, and you know, these are things that we need to ensure that we inform, you know, the various agencies about the different programs that Francophonie is offering. So it's not just about the French language in and of itself, but the French language to serve the greater development objectives of the member state. So we've really been very strategic in pushing those programs, letting the public know that these things do exist, that they are, for example, opportunities for persons who wants to work in the area of film. There's a Francophonie fund for film, you know.
How can
so
people access?
So there is the website. I mean, like I said, the challenge, of course, is the language barrier. But we are there at the Office of the National Commission for UNESCO. We are available to provide information to persons who are interested in accessing those funding supports. So they can contact us and we can discuss with them. We help with translation of proposals as well. So persons who may want to submit a proposal for a particular program, but because they don't have the language competence, they may feel that they shouldn't. But you can still submit your proposal to us in English. We'll assist with the translation, and we can submit to the Francophonie for funding. So really the caravan was about this. It's about letting persons know that Francophonie is more than just French language and culture, that it really is an organization that seeks to provide opportunities. It's an organization that promotes cooperation among member states, and there are many programs that allow us to do that, to interact with our each other. There's an increased awareness of the African
influence.
You know, not just the African influence, but opportunities with our African partners.
Yes, yes.
This is something that CARICOM is promoting, and the Francophonie as well is
it's
encouraging.
It's a lot wider than just national and just the French language.
Yes. So,
how do you see the involvement of the youth, school children, in the observances, and the importance of their participation?
Okay. Last week in particular, we saw that it was widespread in many of our primary and secondary schools, where teachers along with the students and of course the principals celebrated Journée de la Francophonie with various, not necessarily the aspect of language, but culture as well. And they put on through various activities. They had breakfast, for example, French breakfast, a typical French breakfast, and they offered to almost the entire school.
Awesome.
And they had dressing up in colors of the Francophonie logo, and French is spoken on that day, and some schools began with an assembly in the morning in French, and of course, leading on to other activities. They too had brunch, awesome. And they had concerts.
Awesome.
And it was, yes, excellently done.
I want to give you the final word on this discussion on Francophonie.
So, like I said, Chris, the Francophonie is an organization, it's a community, it's a partnership I think the last word for me is to encourage foreign language acquisition, and we probably need to look at our policies within the education system as to how we can encourage students to learn foreign languages as a matter of priority. I don't want to say that it should be compulsory, but certainly there should be a lot of encouragement for it, especially when you see how students are going overseas and accessing, in higher education all over the world. So it really should be a policy decision to encourage students to acquire the French language, and that, I think, will open a lot of doors for our students to access opportunities worldwide.
Thank you, Ms. Marcia Simforian and Ms. Justima Cooper. Thank you so much for being part of our program. You've just watched another edition of TV 30, 30-minute broadcast of the Government Information Service and the National Television Network. On behalf of the entire production team, we thank you so much. I'm Chris Santney. Thanks for watching.